Kai adjusted his tie nervously, staring at the shimmering floor of the wedding hall. The space station's gravity modulators made everything feel slightly lighter than normal, and the polished surface reflected the colored lights like a pool of liquid crystal. He had never imagined attending Lena's wedding on an orbiting station, much less feeling completely out of place among the well-dressed guests, floating gracefully around him. The station itself was impressive, a massive ring encircling a small exoplanet, glowing with artificial sunlight and verdant patches of gardens. Guests floated between tables and dance areas, laughing and sharing stories while hovering a few inches above the floor. Kai shook his head, trying to calm his nerves. Weddings had always been chaotic on Earth, but this was on another level literally. He caught sight of Lena, glowing in her wedding gown, speaking animatedly with her friends. A smile spread across his face. Remembering how they had grown up together, Lena had always been fearless, daring him into countless adventures, but tonight, he felt more like an observer, unsure where he fit in this swirling, weightless celebration. Then, a soft voice broke through the hum of the hall. "Kai, would you dance with me?" He turned slowly, startled. Standing there was Dr. Amara Voss, Lena's mother. She was elegant, her hair swept up in a style that made her look both graceful and commanding. Her lab coat had been replaced by a flowing dress that caught the light like liquid silver. Kai's heart skipped a beat. I don't dance much," he stammered, feeling the awkward weight of all his social insecurities. She smiled, a little mischievously. "Neither do I. That's what makes it fun." Before he could respond further, she held out her hand. The gravity modulators made the motion seem slower, more deliberate. Kai hesitated only a moment before placing his hand in hers. As soon as they began moving together, something strange happened. The hall seemed to fade around him. The hovering guests, the floating drinks, the bright lights, everything blurred into a soft haze. Kai realized that this dance, simple as it seemed, was unlike anything he had ever experienced. "See?" Amara's voice was soft, almost a whisper. "You don't have to be perfect. Just follow me." They moved across the floor, gliding in a rhythm that seemed to float naturally between them. It was almost as if the station itself was adjusting to their steps, letting them drift effortlessly. Kai marveled at how human ingenuity had turned something as ordinary as dancing into an experience that felt magical. For a moment, he forgot the wedding, the station, and all his worries. There was only the dance, only the connection, subtle and fleeting, between two humans sharing a rare moment of closeness in the vast expanse of space. Then she murmured, almost to herself, but just loud enough for him to hear, "Hold me a little longer." The words sent a shiver down his spine. Kai didn't fully understand what she meant. It wasn't romantic, at least. He didn't think it was. There was something deeper, almost urgent, in her tone, something that hinted at stories untold, secrets kept for too long, and perhaps fears too heavy to carry alone. Kai's mind raced. He wanted to respond, to ask what she meant, but the words stuck in his throat. Instead, he tightened his grip just slightly, letting her lead them across the floor. Every step felt like a careful negotiation between light and weight, between two people suspended in a fragile moment of trust. Amara glanced at him, her eyes soft but filled with unspoken thoughts. "You know, sometimes we don't get a second chance. Sometimes we have to hold the moments we have. Because no one else will." Kai nodded, not fully understanding, but feeling the truth of her words. There was something profoundly human about this desire to connect, to hold on to fleeting moments in the midst of uncertainty. On a station orbiting a distant planet, surrounded by people celebrating love and life, this small act of trust felt revolutionary. They continued to glide across the floor, and slowly, Kai began to relax. The awkwardness melted away, replaced by curiosity and a strange sense of exhilaration. He noticed details he hadn't before, the way her fingers were slightly calloused, a hint of years of careful work and dedication. The way her eyes sparkled when she laughed quietly. The same kind of laughter that had once filled Lena's childhood home. Why "Why did you ask me to dance?" he finally asked, his voice low enough to be heard only by her. She looked at him thoughtfully, as if weighing how much to reveal. "Because sometimes," she said slowly, "we need someone outside our usual world to help us remember what's important. Someone who sees us, really sees us." Even for a moment, Kai felt a warmth spread through him. It wasn't flattery or ego, it was recognition, a shared understanding that, in the vastness of space, human connection was more precious than any technology, any scientific breakthrough, any artificial light. As the music shifted, a gentle, flowing melody, Kai realized the dance was almost over. He felt a pang of disappointment. He didn't want the moment to end. He wanted to linger, to keep the fragile connection alive just a little longer. Amara seemed to sense his thought. She leaned closer, whispering again, "Hold me a little longer." This time, the words were not just a murmur, they were a request, a plea even. And Kai understood, without fully knowing why, that he could not refuse. They finished the dance in a quiet embrace, their movements slowing until they floated almost still. Around them, the guests continued their celebrations, unaware of the quiet, extraordinary moment happening just feet away. Kai felt a rush of emotions: wonder, curiosity, awe, and a deep sense of responsibility. He had no idea what was coming next. None of them did. But in that fleeting moment, gliding across a floor suspended in space, he knew one thing with absolute certainty. Humans were capable of incredible things, not because of technology or strength, but because of the connections they dared to make. And perhaps, just perhaps, he was about to discover exactly what Dr. Voss meant by those words. The dance ended, and they stepped apart, letting go of each other slowly, almost reluctantly. Kai watched her return to her seat, her expression calm, but tinged with something unreadable. His mind whirled with questions, but he pushed them aside for now. The wedding still waited, the celebrations, the laughter, the hovering guests, but a new awareness had taken root in him. Human ingenuity wasn't just about building machines or solving equations. It was about daring to connect, to trust, and to act when the moment demanded it. And tonight, amid music, floating lights, and laughter, Kai had felt the full weight and lightness of that truth. As the music changed again, and the next dance began, Kai realized he had changed too. He felt more awake, more present, and more aware of the strange, beautiful power of human connection. Somewhere in the depths of space, on a station orbiting a distant planet, a young engineer had discovered the extraordinary strength hidden in the simple act of holding someone even for just a little longer. The celebration continued around Kai, but his mind was elsewhere. The quiet intensity of the dance with Dr. Amara Voss still lingered, like a faint echo of something important he couldn't yet name. He watched her from a distance as she returned to her seat. Her posture poised yet slightly tense. It was unlike any mother he had known, strong, brilliant, yet carrying a weight that seemed almost physical. Kai tried to shake off the feeling, telling himself it was just the overwhelming wonder of the station. But then, as he moved toward the floating refreshments, a discreet alarm beeped from his wrist communicator. He frowned and tapped it. A small message blinked across the holographic screen. Urgent. Gravimetric anomaly detected. Station safety protocols triggered. Seek Dr. Voss immediately. His stomach tightened. Gravimetric anomalies were rare and dangerous. On a station orbiting a planet, even the slightest disruption could send tides, machinery, or entire habitats out of balance. He scanned the hall, noting that nobody else seemed to have noticed anything unusual. The guests laughed, floated, and danced, completely unaware of the quiet alarm that hummed across the station. Kai knew what he had to do. He walked quickly but discreetly toward Amara's seat. "Dr. Voss," he said softly, "there's something wrong with the station's gravity systems. I got an alert." Amara's eyes flicked toward him. For a moment, she didn't speak. Then, almost imperceptibly, her expression shifted. Concern replaced her calm exterior. She glanced around the room, ensuring no one else was paying attention, and motioned for Kai to follow her. They moved toward a side corridor that led to the station's observation deck. The music faded behind them, replaced by the quiet hum of machinery and the soft thrum of artificial gravity regulators. Kai felt the station's pulse under his feet, subtle vibrations that hinted at the immense energy holding them in orbit. "What's happening?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Amara took a deep breath. "It's subtle, but dangerous. The orbit of the planet we circle, it's slightly off. Helion, the station AI, detected irregularities, and I can't explain them yet." She paused, eyes distant. "It may be nothing, or it may be catastrophic. I've spent decades studying orbital mechanics, but even the smallest anomaly here could become a huge problem in hours." Kai's heart pounded. He had always admired Dr. Voss for her genius, but seeing her serious, almost fearful, was jarring. "Is there a solution?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "I've been working on one. A device that can stabilize the planet's orbit using a series of controlled gravimetric pulses. But it's experimental, and I need someone with intuition for complex systems, someone who can think differently than I do." She looked at him sharply. "Kai, that's why I asked you to dance with me." Kai blinked, stunned. "Me? But I'm just an engineer in training. How can I help with something like this?" Amara smiled faintly, but there was no humor in her eyes. "Because sometimes, the right person isn't the one with the most experience. It's the one who can see patterns others miss. And that's you. Kai, you have a way of thinking I haven't seen in anyone else on this station." The weight of her words pressed on him. He had always tried to be useful, to learn, to create solutions, but standing here, in the quiet observation deck, facing a potential planetary crisis, he felt small. Yet the trust in her eyes gave him courage he didn't know he had. "Okay," he said finally, determination settling over his fear. "I'll help," Amara nodded. "Good. Then we must act quickly." She led him to a secure lab, a room filled with holographic screens, intricate machinery, and tools floating in zero-gravity pods. The hum of gravimetric regulators filled the room, and the lights from the observation deck painted everything in a soft blue glow. "This is where I've been working," she said, gesturing to a device in the center of the room. It looked like a combination of a gravimetric projector and a network of finely tuned sensors. It can emit pulses to correct orbital fluctuations. But the calibration is delicate. One wrong adjustment, and we could make things worse. Kai approached the device, his hands hovering over the controls. The technology was unlike anything he had seen before. Yet, beneath its complexity, he sensed a pattern, a rhythm he could understand. His mind, trained in logic and improvisation, began to map the connections, the flows of energy, the invisible forces at play. "First," Amara said, "we need to monitor the anomalies and trace their source. Helion can give us data, but we need intuition, a human touch. Sometimes the AI misses subtleties we can see." Kai nodded and accessed the Helion interface. Streams of information flowed past. Numbers and symbols representing orbital velocity, mass distribution, and gravitational anomalies. He focused on the small variations, the patterns that shifted just slightly, almost imperceptibly. "Here," he said, pointing. "The anomaly isn't random, it's moving in a sequence, like it's targeted." Amara frowned. "Targeted? That's impossible. Nothing out here could manipulate a planet's orbit deliberately." Kai shook his head. "Maybe not deliberately, but it's following a pattern, responding to something. Maybe a natural phenomenon we haven't identified yet. Or maybe Helion is misreading it." Amara's expression softened. "You see it too. That's why I asked you to dance. I needed a fresh perspective. Someone willing to trust instinct along with data." Kai's heart swelled. The weight of responsibility was heavy, but there was something invigorating in the challenge. They were a team, her experience, and his intuition combined. They could do this. Over the next few hours, they worked together, analyzing streams of data, adjusting simulations, and testing calibration sequences. Time seemed to blur. Outside, the wedding continued, guests laughing and celebrating, unaware of the quiet crisis unfolding above the exoplanet. Inside the lab, Kai and Amara communicated in a language of shared focus, their actions synchronized, each anticipating the other's next move. Kai marveled at her skill. She moved with precision and grace, adjusting equipment with hands that were both strong and delicate. And yet, he realized something even more important: she trusted him. That trust was as critical as any technical skill. It gave him confidence to make suggestions, to improvise, to contribute in ways he never thought possible. As the first calibration sequences completed, a soft hum resonated through the lab. The device pulsed gently, sending waves of gravimetric energy into the space around the station. The numbers on the screens began to stabilize. "It's working," Amara whispered, almost in disbelief. Kai smiled, a mix of relief and pride. "We did it." "For now," she nodded, but her expression was still serious. "It's not over. The anomaly is still present. We've slowed it, but we haven't solved the root cause. That will take more work, more careful observation, and maybe some unconventional thinking." Kai felt a thrill run through him. Human ingenuity wasn't just about solving problems in a lab. It was about persistence, trust, collaboration, and daring to act when the stakes were high. Tonight, in the quiet glow of the observation deck, he understood the full meaning of those words she had whispered during the dance. "Hold me a little longer." It wasn't just about a fleeting moment. It was about holding on to hope, holding on to trust, and holding on to the courage to face the unknown. The night deepened, and the station continued its orbit around the planet, steady but subtly trembling. Outside, the stars glittered against the blackness of space, distant and indifferent. Yet within the station, Kai and Amara had discovered something extraordinary: that humans, when they worked together, could do things that no machine, no algorithm, no artificial intelligence could replicate alone. Kai glanced at her, and she smiled faintly. "We need rest soon," she said. "Tomorrow, we start the next phase. But for now, take a moment to appreciate this." He nodded, leaning back against a wall and gazing out at the planet below. Its forests shimmered in artificial sunlight. Rivers glimmered, and the clouds moved in slow, beautiful patterns. Humanity had reached out to the stars, built wonders, celebrated life, and yet, even here, amidst incredible technology, it was connection, trust, and ingenuity that made them truly remarkable. Kai felt a sense of awe he had never known before. The wedding, the dance, the quiet words, the pulse of the station, everything had led him here, to a place where humans were extraordinary not because of what they built, but because of how they faced the unknown together. Amara watched him quietly, sensing his thoughts. "Tomorrow, it will get harder," she said softly. "But I believe we can do it. Together." Kai nodded, feeling a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. He didn't know exactly what lay ahead, but he knew one thing: humans were capable of incredible things when they dared to trust one another. And tonight, in the quiet hum of a station orbiting a distant world, he had learned the first lesson of many: to hold on to the extraordinary. Even when the future was uncertain, even when the stakes were higher than anything he had ever faced. The sun-like lights of the station's artificial sky dimmed as the evening deepened. Outside, the distant exoplanet rotated slowly, its green forests and sparkling rivers reflecting in the observation deck's wide glass panels. Inside, the station's hum was steady but tense, a subtle reminder of the delicate balance they were trying to maintain. Kai had barely slept. His mind was alive with calculations, sequences, and possibilities. The anomaly Amara had identified was persistent, moving in ways that defied the usual patterns. Each time they thought they had stabilized a section of orbit, new irregularities appeared. Yet, despite the pressure, Kai felt an unusual surge of energy. This was what he had always dreamed of. Real challenges that demanded not only technical knowledge, but intuition, creativity, and courage. Amara appeared at the lab doorway, holding a tablet floating gently beside her. "Kai," she said, her voice calm but firm, "Helion has updated the trajectory data. The anomaly is accelerating slightly. If we don't act quickly, the planet's orbit could shift enough to destabilize the station in a matter of hours." Kai nodded, swallowing the lump of fear in his throat. He had worked on simulations before, but this was different. This wasn't a classroom problem or a routine test. This was real. Every choice they made could ripple across the station and the planet below. He took a deep breath and floated toward the holographic control panel. "Show me the anomaly's path," he said. The holographic display flickered to life, projecting a three-dimensional map of the planet's orbit, the station, and the gravitational currents around them. Streams of light curved and shifted, showing subtle disturbances that seemed to twist the otherwise smooth orbital path. Amara pointed at one area. "Here. This is where the anomaly began. See the irregular pulses? They've been slowly propagating outward. I've tried compensating, but the system responds too slowly. We need to synchronize the gravimetric pulses in real time, and that requires improvisation." Kai studied the display, tracing the curves with his fingers. Improvisation? Like using what's available, instead of relying on preset algorithms? "Exactly," Amara said. "Sometimes the human mind can detect patterns and react faster than the AI. We need to act now, before it becomes too large to control." Kai's heart raced. Improvisation had always been a thrill for him, but now it carried a weight he had never experienced. He glanced at Amara, who was already reviewing data streams with the focus of someone who had spent decades training for moments like this. Her trust in him was quiet but undeniable. He couldn't fail her. They worked side by side, floating in the zero-gravity lab as holographic displays shimmered around them. Kai suggested slight modifications to the pulse sequence, small adjustments based on patterns he noticed in the anomaly's rhythm. Amara tested them immediately, tweaking the calibration with delicate precision. The gravimetric projector pulsed, sending waves of energy toward the planet. The screens flickered as the numbers shifted, some improving, some worsening. It was a delicate dance, one misstep away from disaster. Kai felt a sudden jolt as the station trembled slightly. A nearby console beeped warning signals. "Minor fluctuation," Helion announced. "Stabilization required." Kai gritted his teeth. "That's the one we didn't anticipate. It's reacting faster than predicted." Amara floated closer. "We can use the station's auxiliary thrusters to compensate for the drift, but I'll need your help to synchronize them with the gravimetric pulses. 1 second off, and we risk overshooting." Kai nodded. He floated to the thruster controls, his fingers dancing over the holographic interface. He felt the thrill of responsibility, the tension of knowing that failure was not an option. He synchronized his actions with Amara's adjustments, and together, they created a rhythm, the projector pulsing, the thrusters firing in carefully timed sequences. Slowly, the numbers on the screens began to stabilize. The anomaly's acceleration decreased, and the orbital map showed fewer distortions. Kai exhaled, but only slightly. They weren't done. Amara floated to his side, pointing at another section of the display. "This sector is still unstable. The anomaly is spreading unevenly. We may need to improvise again, using materials around the lab to fine-tune the pulses." Kai's eyes widened. "Materials? Like?" She gestured to floating equipment. Metallic rods, sensor arrays, even the tools they had been using to calibrate the device. "We can modify the gravimetric field with physical conductors. It won't be perfect, but it can give us the precision we need for the final adjustments." Kai's mind raced. He had always loved tinkering with devices, creating solutions from unexpected materials. Now, the stakes were higher than ever. He floated to a set of sensor arrays, carefully adjusting their positions while Amara modified the gravimetric pulses. The lab hummed with energy, a symphony of light, sound, and motion. Every adjustment required precise timing, intuition, and collaboration. The world outside seemed distant, the wedding celebrations now just a memory. All that mattered was the anomaly and their combined ingenuity. Minutes stretched into hours. Fatigue threatened to slow their reflexes, but neither of them allowed it. They communicated with quiet efficiency, anticipating each other's moves and correcting in real time. Kai felt a surge of pride not for himself, but for the human spirit that made moments like this possible. Finally, the major distortions began to stabilize. The gravimetric pulses flowed smoothly. The thrusters responded perfectly, and the orbital map showed a nearly normal trajectory. Helion's voice echoed softly in the lab. Orbital stability restored. Minor anomalies remain, but no immediate danger detected. Kai let out a long breath, floating back against a wall. The tension in his shoulders eased slightly. "We did it," he whispered, almost in disbelief. Amara smiled faintly, exhaustion evident in her posture but not in her eyes. "For now," she said, "the anomaly isn't gone entirely. We'll need to continue monitoring. But this was the critical step. We've bought ourselves time." Kai nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and exhilaration. The adrenaline of the crisis was fading, replaced by a quiet sense of accomplishment. He had been terrified, but he had also been fully alive, fully engaged, and fully human in a way he had never experienced before. They floated in silence for a moment, both taking in the view of the planet below. The forests shimmered, rivers sparkled, and the clouds drifted lazily in the artificial sunlight. It was a beautiful, fragile world, and for a brief moment, Kai understood the true weight of what they had protected. Amara's voice broke the silence. "Kai, there's something I need to tell you." He looked at her, curiosity piqued. "What is it?" She hesitated, her eyes reflecting both pride and concern. "The anomaly. It may not be entirely natural. There are signs that something, perhaps a small but significant force, has been influencing the planet's orbit for decades. I don't know exactly what it is yet, but it's clever, and it's persistent. That's why Helion couldn't fully predict it." Kai felt a chill. Something. Or someone. Amara didn't answer immediately. Instead, she floated closer, her gaze steady. "We'll find out. But tonight, remember this. Humans can face the impossible and find solutions that no machine alone could discover. That's why I trusted you." Kai's chest swelled with a strange combination of awe, pride, and determination. He realized the dance at the wedding, the whispered words, and this moment were all connected. Life, in all its unpredictability and complexity, demanded ingenuity, courage, and connection. And in this station, orbiting a distant world, humans were proving themselves extraordinary. They began preparations to rest, knowing the next phase would demand even more creativity and resilience. Yet Kai felt a quiet thrill. He had glimpsed the power of human thought, collaboration, and intuition. And whatever the anomaly truly was, he knew they could face it together. For the first time in hours, he allowed himself a small smile. The station was alive with the hum of machinery, the distant laughter from the wedding halls, and the soft glow of the planet below. In this vast, fragile world, humans had shown their brilliance not through sheer force or luck, but through ingenuity, courage, and the determination to act when it mattered most. Kai looked at Amara one last time before closing his eyes, and he knew the truth of her whispered words at the dance. Holding on, trusting one another, and daring to act could change the course of fate. Tonight, they had done it. Tomorrow, the challenge would continue, but now, they were ready. The night had grown quiet across the station. Outside, the exoplanet rotated lazily, its forests and rivers bathed in the soft glow of artificial sunlight. Inside, The lab was alive with the soft hum of gravimetric machinery and the occasional flicker of holographic displays. Kai and Amara had rested briefly, but both knew the anomaly was far from gone. "We've stabilized the main distortions," Amara said, her voice calm but edged with caution. "But there are still subtle fluctuations in the orbit. We need to fine-tune the gravimetric pulses in real time. And that means improvisation using whatever we have at hand." Kai's mind raced. Improvisation had been part of their strategy before, but now the stakes were higher than ever. The subtle fluctuations, though minor, could escalate quickly if left unchecked. He floated toward the equipment, scanning the lab for anything that could help. Metallic rods, sensor arrays, and even everyday lab supplies glinted under the artificial lights. Amara joined him, floating beside the central device. "We can adjust the field with physical conductors," she explained. "If we position them carefully, they'll direct the gravimetric energy more precisely. It's not perfect, but it's our best option." Kai nodded, determination settling in his chest. He began moving rods and arrays into place, watching how the holographic display responded. The pulses shifted subtly. Reacting to the changes, he adjusted positions in small increments, noticing patterns in the anomaly's behavior. "Good," Amara said, her eyes scanning the displays. "Now, let's synchronize the auxiliary thrusters. The gravitational pulses and thrusters must work as one. Any misstep could amplify the fluctuations instead of correcting them." Kai accessed the thruster controls, fingers moving quickly over the holographic interface. He felt a thrill as he aligned the timing of each thruster with the gravimetric pulses. Amara monitored the readings, suggesting micro-adjustments in real time. Together, they created a rhythm, a human-driven symphony of energy, calculation, and instinct. The station trembled slightly, a reminder that even minor errors could have consequences. Kai's heart raced. He had never felt such a mixture of fear and excitement. Every adjustment mattered. Every decision could ripple across the station and the planet below. "Steady," Amara whispered, her voice calm but intense. "Watch the data. Trust your instincts and respond quickly." Kai's mind focused entirely on the displays. Numbers and lines shifted, pulses responded, and he began to notice subtle signs he hadn't before. The anomaly wasn't uniform, it responded differently depending on the sector of orbit and the intensity of the pulses. Small adjustments in one area could create beneficial effects in another. "I see it," he said. "If we reinforce these three sectors and slightly reduce the pulses here, we can balance the orbital energy." Amara's eyes lit up. "Exactly. Do it." Kai moved swiftly, repositioning rods and tweaking pulse intensity. The holographic display showed the numbers stabilizing, the orbital distortions shrinking. For a moment, it seemed almost too easy, but he knew better. They were in the delicate phase where even the slightest miscalculation could undo everything. "Now, the final sequence," Amara said. "We need to channel all remaining energy into the stabilization grid while compensating for the residual anomaly." Kai's hands moved over the controls, coordinating thrusters and gravimetric pulses. The rods and arrays floated in precise positions, conducting the energy with a delicate balance. The anomaly trembled, wavered, and then gradually began to subside. Helion's calm voice echoed through the lab. "Orbital stabilization complete. Minor anomalies remain, but no immediate danger detected. Station is stable." Kai let out a long breath, floating back and letting the relief wash over him. The station's subtle vibrations calmed, the hum of machinery steady and smooth. He looked at Amara, whose expression was a mixture of exhaustion, relief, and pride. "We did it," Kai said softly, almost in disbelief. Amara smiled, the weight of hours of tension and calculation evident in her eyes. "Yes, we did it. Together." They floated in silence for a moment, watching the planet below. Its forests shimmered, rivers sparkled, and clouds drifted lazily in the artificial sunlight. It was a beautiful, fragile world, and they had protected it not through brute force or luck, but through ingenuity, collaboration, and trust. Kai felt a deep sense of awe. He had faced a challenge greater than anything he had imagined, and he had discovered something profound. Humans were capable of extraordinary achievements when they worked together, trusted each other, and dared to act with creativity and courage. Amara spoke quietly. Kai, this is what I meant during the dance. Holding on a little longer. It isn't just about a single moment. It's about perseverance, trust, and the courage to face what others think is impossible. Kai nodded. The memory of the dance returned, the soft words she had whispered. Everything seemed connected: the wedding, the anomaly, the night, the human spirit that refused to yield. Tomorrow, Amara continued, we'll analyze the residual fluctuations and strengthen the stabilization grid. But tonight, we should rest. We've earned it. Kai agreed, though he felt a strange reluctance. He didn't want the adrenaline to fade. He wanted to linger in the glow of accomplishment, to savor the triumph of human ingenuity. But exhaustion soon pulled him down, and he allowed himself to float to a nearby rest area, muscles relaxing and mind buzzing with the events of the night. Even in sleep, his thoughts were alive with calculations and patterns, an echo of the rhythm he and Amara had created. The station hummed softly around him, steady and stable, a testament to their efforts. The next morning, Kai awoke to the soft hum of the station and the faint glow of the exoplanet below. Amara was already at the lab, reviewing data and monitoring the residual anomalies. She looked up and smiled as he entered. Good morning, she said. Rested? As well as I can be, Kai replied, floating toward her. The stabilization seems solid. The numbers look stable. Yes, Amara said, pointing at the displays. The residual fluctuations are minimal. We can now focus on strengthening the grid and ensuring long-term stability. But I want you to notice something. She highlighted a section of the holographic display. See this? The anomaly isn't random. It follows a subtle, repeating pattern. That pattern may tell us its origin, or at least how it behaves over time. Kai studied the display carefully. He saw the curves, the pulses, and the small oscillations. Slowly, a realization struck him. It's almost like it's aware, he said. It adapts to our adjustments. Amara nodded. Precisely. That's why intuition was crucial. Helion could predict general trends, but it couldn't adapt like we did. Humans can respond in real time, notice subtle changes, and improvise. That is our advantage. Kai felt a surge of pride. The anomaly had tested them to the limit, and they had prevailed. Not through brute force or pre-programmed solutions, but through human ingenuity, courage, and trust. Are we done? He asked, almost reluctantly. Not entirely, Amara said. We'll continue to monitor and adjust over the coming days. But the immediate crisis is over. Humanity has triumphed again, not because of technology alone, but because of creativity, collaboration, and the will to act. Kai nodded, understanding fully now what she had meant. He thought of the dance, the whispered words, the trust that had sparked the beginning of this journey. Everything had led to this point, a proof that humans could achieve the extraordinary even in the face of uncertainty. As they stepped back to the observation deck, the station seemed almost alive with quiet satisfaction. Outside, the exoplanet shimmered in gentle sunlight, and the stars beyond glittered like diamonds. Kai felt a connection to it all, a fragile, beautiful world protected by human determination and ingenuity. Amara placed a hand on his shoulder. Remember this feeling, she said softly. The next challenge may come, but we've learned something invaluable tonight. Humans can hold the impossible together. And sometimes, that is enough. Kai smiled, a deep sense of purpose filling him. He had faced fear, uncertainty, and the unknown. And together with Amara, they had triumphed. It was a victory not just of skill, but of the human spirit itself. And as they watched the planet below, calm and stable once more, Kai realized something profound. The extraordinary wasn't in machines, algorithms, or advanced technology. The extraordinary was in humans, their creativity, their courage, their willingness to act, and their ability to trust one another when it mattered most. Tonight, humanity had triumphed. And Kai knew, with certainty, that no matter what the universe threw at them next, they could face it. Together, the morning light of the station glowed softly across the observation deck. Kai floated near the wide glass panels, staring at the exoplanet below. Its forests were calm. Rivers sparkled like silver threads, and the clouds drifted lazily across the sky. The planet's orbit had stabilized, thanks to the efforts he and Amara had put in over the past 2 days. Yet, as peaceful as everything looked, Kai felt a lingering sense of awe. They had faced a challenge that seemed impossible, and had triumphed through human ingenuity, trust, and determination. Amara entered the observation deck, holding a small tablet with the latest gravimetric readings. She glanced at Kai and smiled. "Good morning. The final adjustments to the stabilization grid have held. Helion reports the orbit is now steady. We've completed our work." Kai exhaled slowly, a mixture of relief and pride washing over him. "It feels almost unreal," he said. "The planet, the station, everything is stable." "Yes," Amara replied, her eyes reflecting quiet satisfaction. "It's a moment to remember. Humanity has shown its strength once again. Not through brute force, not through machines alone, but through creativity, collaboration, and courage." Kai nodded. He thought back to the dance at the wedding, to her whispered words, "Hold me a little longer." At the time, he hadn't fully understood. Now, in the calm aftermath of their triumph, he realized she had meant more than a fleeting moment. She had meant holding on to trust, to courage, to the human spirit itself, even in the face of uncertainty. The station's corridors were alive with people preparing for the day's events. Guests from the wedding floated by, laughing and chatting, unaware of the quiet crisis that had almost shaken the planet below them. Kai and Amara had kept their work secret, knowing that panic would accomplish nothing, yet that secrecy made their success feel even more profound. "Shall we return to the celebration?" Amara asked gently, motioning toward the hallway. Kai smiled. "I think we should. After everything we've done, it's time to celebrate life, not just survival." They floated back to the wedding hall. The space was vibrant with activity, guests moving in graceful arcs under the artificial sky, laughter and music filling the air. The hall seemed unchanged, yet for Kai, everything was different. He saw the beauty of human connection, the shared joy, the laughter, the care, and felt it more deeply than ever before. Lena noticed him first. "Kai," she called, her voice full of warmth. "There you are. Come join us." Kai smiled and waved. "Of course." He floated toward her, feeling lighter than he had in days, not from the gravity modulators, but from the exhilaration of accomplishment and the human triumph that had carried him through the crisis. Amara lingered for a moment at the edge of the hall. Kai turned back to her. "Come on," he said. "The dance isn't over." "Not yet." She looked at him, surprise flickering across her face. Then a small smile appeared. "You're right," she said softly. "It isn't." The music shifted. A gentle, flowing melody filling the hall. Guests began moving in time to the rhythm, floating gracefully above the floor. Kai extended his hand to Amara, just as he had on the night of the dance that had begun everything. She took it, and together, they moved into the center of the hall. This dance was different. It wasn't quiet or private, it was part of the celebration, shared with everyone around them. Yet for Kai, the moment remained intimate. It wasn't just a dance of movement, but a dance of understanding, trust, and human triumph. Every step they took reflected the challenges they had faced, the improvisation, the courage, and the ingenuity that had stabilized a planet's orbit. "Do you remember the first time we danced?" Kai asked quietly, leaning close enough that only she could hear. Amara nodded, a faint smile playing on her lips. Yes, I whispered. Hold me a little longer. Back then, I didn't know you would help me save a planet. But you did. Kai's heart swelled. We did it together. And I think that's what mattered. She nodded, her eyes reflecting the soft glow of the station lights. It always matters, Kai. Humans are capable of extraordinary things when we work together. That is our greatest strength. They glided across the floor, moving with a rhythm that seemed almost like flight. Around them, the guests floated and twirled. But Kai felt a bubble of calm and focus. In this dance, he understood something he hadn't before. Humanity wasn't just about survival or technology. It was about courage, connection, and the ability to act when the stakes were highest. Hours passed as the celebration continued. Kai and Amara floated from one part of the hall to another, sometimes joining clusters of friends and family, sometimes stealing quiet moments together. Everywhere they went, the energy of human life was palpable: laughter, conversation, creativity, and joy intertwined in a vibrant tapestry that no machine could replicate. At one point, Kai paused near the observation window, gazing at the exoplanet below. Its orbit was steady, its forests and rivers serene. He realized the magnitude of what they had accomplished. Millions of lives were secure, the station safe. All because humans had trusted each other, acted with courage, and combined intellect with intuition. Amara joined him silently. She floated next to him, her gaze fixed on the planet. "It's beautiful," she said softly. "Yes," Kai replied, "and fragile. But now, stable, at least for now," she nodded. "And that is why we must continue to innovate, to trust, and to act. Humans don't just survive. They shape their destiny, even among the stars." Kai smiled, feeling a profound sense of pride and hope. "Then let's keep dancing," he said, gesturing toward the hall. They returned to the wedding floor, moving in time with the music. This time, there was no tension, no fear, only joy, camaraderie, and the quiet knowledge that humanity had triumphed, not by accident, but through ingenuity, courage, and collaboration. Guests floated around them, some joining their rhythm, others laughing at the joy of floating in harmony. Kai glanced at Amara and caught a glimpse of the same feeling reflected in her eyes. A sense of wonder at human potential, and a recognition of what they had achieved together. As the dance drew to a close, Kai felt a quiet satisfaction. He realized that the whispered words from the night of the wedding had been more than a plea. They had been a prophecy. "Hold me a little longer," had been about trust, about courage, and about the human spirit that refused to yield in the face of the impossible. He and Amara floated to the edge of the hall, watching the celebration continue. The exoplanet below spun gracefully in its orbit, a testament to human ingenuity and the power of collaboration. Kai took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the past days settle into a quiet, enduring pride. Humanity had triumphed not through machines alone, not through luck or strength, but through the courage to act, the ingenuity to solve problems, and the trust to work together in moments of uncertainty. Amara placed a hand on his shoulder. "Remember this feeling," she said softly. "The next challenge will come. There will always be unknowns. But humanity will endure, because we hold on, we create, and we trust." Kai nodded. "I understand now," he said. "It's not just about survival. It's about thriving. Together." The music shifted again, a soft, lingering melody filling the hall. Guests continued their dances, laughter echoing through the station. Kai and Amara returned to the floor, gliding through the crowd, each movement a quiet celebration of life, courage, and the extraordinary power of humanity. For Kai, the wedding, the dance, and the crisis had all merged into a single, unforgettable truth. Humans were remarkable not because of what they could build, but because of what they could do together. They could innovate, adapt, and overcome even the most impossible challenges through trust, ingenuity, and the simple, enduring power of the human spirit. And as the evening drew to a close, Kai realized something extraordinary. The dance that began the journey hadn't ended. It had simply transformed into something greater, a celebration of human potential, courage, and connection. A dance that could last a lifetime.